leadership is on board. The top people in the church don't need to run the ministry. But they need to be saying yes to this ministry. And then also, as it fits in the overall vision, the leaders of the sports ministry must be committed to the leadership of the church. And they are one ministry of the church. So you might have your children's ministry, you have your prayer ministry, maybe your women's ministry, worship ministry, and the sports ministry. It's a ministry of the church. And the leaders of the sports ministry must be committed to other ministries as well. This is extremely important. Because here's what will happen with sports ministry. Sports ministry can be very exciting. And it can become very popular. And it can become very big. And the ladies' prayer ministry might be small. If you're leading the sports ministry, you have 1,000 young people at your tournaments. And you come to the meeting of all the church leaders. And this lady says there were 3 of us who prayed all night. It'd be very easy to say, only 3, I have 1,000. The leader of sports ministry must understand the value of every ministry. They must be convinced that those 3 ladies praying all night enabled them to have their ministry. Every ministry always has a chance to want to rebel. But I believe it's always high potential within sports ministry. So just make sure if you're setting it up with somebody, make sure they're a significant person. If you're the one leading the ministry, make sure you're without the church, that ministry falls. Then also when you set this up, I really want to encourage you to, from the beginning, say, what is my discipleship plan? Even before you get into how we're going to reach kids, it's right from the beginning, say, what is our plan on how to make disciples? So you might have a curriculum in your Sunday school that you're going to use. We have curriculum at the IFA that we help people with. But just make sure you're thinking from the beginning, how are we going to make disciples? Okay, now let's get into the fun part of the sport. You're going to start sports. You should ask yourself, what sport are we going to use? Well, we have a netball. She says we can only play netball. When people ask me what sport should we use, I love the story of Moses in Exodus chapter 4. And God said to him, he's talking to God about freeing the Israelites. And he says, what if they don't listen? And God says to him, he says, what's in your hand? Moses looks in his hand, and he says, a stick. You know what God says? He says, that will do. I'll use the staff. This is what I want you to hear when we're talking about what sports to use. When you started, ask yourself what's in your hand. Meaning you're starting with nothing, so don't get huge before you've started. Start with what you have. You might say, I'd like to have a huge stadium. But do you want a huge stadium? That's what I told you. I do. I was sharing my dad So even though that was wonderful, you don't even have a player yet. We always want to think, I want the biggest immediate. That's not how God does things. I really believe God asks us when you're going to start something, what's in your hand? What can you start with? A stick is pretty simple. And so that's what God used. It was just a stick. But it turned into something amazing. When he laid it down, God said, lay it at my feet. He laid it down. When you stand, I'm sure Moses stepped back. Because I'm done with that. But God said, now pick it up. One pick it up and pick it up. And it turned back into a staff. Because he went through that process. Taking what he had and giving it to Jesus. And not picking it up till God said to pick it up. And he specifically told him how to pick it up. And then he gave a mighty weapon. For the next 40 years. So here's the challenge for you when you're thinking about what you want to do. What do you have? What do you have? And start there. Don't start with something you don't have. Start with something you have. For instance, if you have coaches, people who are coaches of football, That's a pretty easy place to start. If you have netball, but if you have a, depending on your location, what do you have? Any sport will do. Because remember, it's not about the sport. Our goal is to make disciples. So it doesn't matter what sport we use. I'll let you in on a little secret. I don't like football. Don't tell anybody. I have been able to reach thousands of kids through football. Therefore, I love football. The sport doesn't matter. If I were to choose a sport, I would go play golf. But it's not about the sport, it's about making disciples. So use the sport that's going to be most effective to making disciples. And that you have the ability to learn. I was in Western Canada. And I was with Western Canada near the What's the tribe? What's the tribe? No, but that's right. What is that? Okay, so I'm in the college tribe. So they want to reach young people. I've been with this church for 2 years. And they were thinking, what sports do we use? How do we reach young people? Well, what do the colleges do? What do they do? So, one time with the pastor, he said, in our church, we have a national gold medalist lady in the 10,000 meter. He says, maybe we could use her. I said, Pastor Peter, of course you would use her. Young people would want to run with a national gold medalist. She began to put together a running club and took her out running. But they forgot to ask the question, what's in your hand? The sports that the ISA has used. We have used many sports. We of course use football, that's the team. We use basketball, netball, volleyball, baseball, cricket, badminton, tennis, table tennis, handball. My encouragement to you flag any sport that will attract the young people. And make sure you fit it into what you have. Maybe you're in your church is really in a small area. Maybe you don't have anything. So now you have to be a little more creative. So ask God what you can use in these areas. So because remember, it's all about making disciples. Okay, so once you decide on the sport, you can use multiple sports. So let's pretend let's say you want to do football. You have some coaches, you know a place you can play, and so you say we're gonna start using football. So there's a few options of how to use the actual football. One is the simplest, and you might just call it an open pitch. You go to a pitch, people know that if they come on Sunday night, that they're going to be able to play. And so when you go to the pitch, there are teams there. You just come, and young people come. Maybe 50, maybe 75. They're just there. And they're playing. Maybe there's just some games going on. Maybe they're running through some drills. But they're just playing. And then at some point, you bring everybody together. And there's where you're having your teaching. You have a lesson and you teach them to pray. And of course, you're always trying to encourage them to come be involved with the church. So that's the kind of the just come and we'll figure it out when we're here. And then the other one is a pretty neat one. This takes more effort. The next type is forming a league. So you're getting multiple teams, and they're going to play each other. So let's say you started with the open concept. And after you did that for a while, you know these young people now. And you know that there's about 50 8 to 11-year-olds. And then there's maybe 50 11 to 15-year-olds. So now what you're going to do is you're going to get them on teams. And they're going to be on a solid team. They're going to have a coach. They're going to have a team name. If possible, they have a team jersey. And they would be on a team. And they would maybe practice on a Wednesday. And at practice, that team would come together to practice. And those 12 or 15 kids would come and play. And the coaches would be there with them. And then during that practice, they're having a Bible study. So maybe they have a Bible study for 30 minutes. And maybe they train for an hour. Maybe you train for a half hour and take a break and have a Bible study. What you've done is you've formed a small group. And you formed a class. And well, I'm telling you, these young people will come back next week. So they come at practice, and the coach or a chaplain comes and has a Bible study with them. So that's team number 1. And team number 2 practices also. And the best way it can work is if team number 2 is studying the same things as team number 1. So team number 3 is practicing. They're having the same Bible study. The same curriculum. So they all practice during the week. And I don't know what days the games would be. Let's say Saturday. And then on Saturday, team 1 plays team 2. These kids are so excited they can't sleep Friday. They got their uniform set out. And they're ready to eat. They're up so early. And their big game is that day. And it's a great game. And they're loving it. And then it's such a great thing because that week, every kid in the league was studying the same material. This is one of our curriculums is a study on the fruit of the Spirit. So let's say in week 6 they all study peace. So they all had a Bible study on peace. So now Saturday is the game. So then maybe at halftime of the game, maybe it's between games, somebody does a 5-minute encouragement on peace. And see, on the practice, you know your students. But at the game, you've got parents and friends. You've got kids watching who wish they were on. So it's also a time to always be presenting the gospel. So your games are going to be a little more evangelistic. Just a short message. Bringing the whole league together and sharing the gospel. So you have multiple games then on games. So that's how a league works. It's not that complicated. Some people will do a league just during school breaks. Because obviously there are more children. But you could do a league for 8 weeks or however long you want. So that's how forming a league works. That takes some administration. You can know how to do it. And as your ministry grows, your league will become more popular. In fact, if you're running a quality league for like 8 to 11-year-olds, everybody's going to want to be involved. What 9-year-old wouldn't want to play football on a team with a uniform? So you start out small, you do it well. And then you look to how you can grow it. And do things really well. Have the football part be really done well. And have the discipleship part be done really well. I mentioned before about a chaplain. But I love the idea of having a chaplain on a team. The coach can do it. The coach can lead the Bible study. But I can tell you, as somebody who's coached for 30 years, It's so much easier for me if somebody else is doing the Bible study. Because this is what happens to a coach. God, go, go, go! Why'd you do that? Don't do that! You did that! Oh, let me teach you about peace. It's just really hard. So, if you can have a chaplain, and their only job is paying attention to the person, and they're watching to see why that kid is crying. They're the one who finds out that grandmother died this week. They're the one who's going to learn that this kid has to eat. They're the ones who are going to be focused on that. And a chaplain could be a chaplain with multiple teams. So I'm a big fan if you can have a coach and a chaplain. It really works well. Now the third way you can run a style of the ministry, and that is having tournaments. Tournaments are really effective. Tournaments usually are larger. There's more students involved. They take a shorter amount of time. They're usually big, just have a little more people. They're also sometimes more expensive. But tournaments are really effective. Tournaments are a lot of times easy to run during school breaks. Like in December, I'm sure they are here. There are football tournaments everywhere. Yeah. So that makes sense. So obviously you can run tournaments. And tournaments are more like maybe tournaments you would think of more like a revival meeting. And a league would be more like a Sunday morning church service. They're kind of good at both. So when you run a tournament, I just encourage you to run it well. Maybe your first tournament would have 4 teams. Keep it small. Because there's a lot of things that go into a tournament. And you want to do it well. So start small. And learn what to do. Learn how many people you need to run it. And have it grow from there. And again, you understand tournaments well. But I just encourage you, run them under, we're going to reach people for Christ. And the players will still be chasing the cup. But they're also going to be receiving the word. And so I've seen it, and I'm convinced you can do it. Some tournaments run by the church are the best tournaments in the county. And the reason that oftentimes is the church knows how to organize things. You do it. You put on this whole conference. You know how to have people in charge of food. And how to have people in charge of registration. And you know how to take care of families. And you know how to delegate to committees. And then you also know how to run things fairly. You're not going to cheat to make sure your child wins. There are a lot of stories you can tell about bad tournaments. It's bad. Especially if there's money involved. And maybe the prize is, 200,000 shillings for the winning team. Well, somebody might cheat to get that 200,000. The church wants to do it better. So that's what a tournament does. So work on all of these, I believe, are important. Just gathering to play, forming a league, and then having a tournament. Then the other thing that you can do, and this usually comes later, is actually having the church sponsor a club team. Alex, I think you mentioned this about your church. Alex? No. Because your church actually has a team. So you sponsor a team. Yeah. So when the church sponsors a team, now they have a team that is representing them in a league. Are there different levels of leagues in this area? So if a church gets behind a team, gets in a league, that can be powerful. Because of course, for some people in your church, it's a wonderful outlet for their gift. They get to become friends with the others on their team. They are representing New Hope as they play. They're meeting people that will share the gospel with. And I know this. Others will want to join your team. And I'm going to come up there and say, Captain Alex, I want to join your team. And I don't know what requirements you would have. But one requirement must be you need to attend church. So they'll play on your team and they'll attend your church. And you know this. When a person comes in contact with Jesus, good things happen. So look at this. Now all of a sudden, this young man who just wants to play football is sitting next to Jesus. Amen. I can tell you, Jesus knows what to do. He knows reason. So I really encourage you, if you want to form a club team, do that. And do it well. Look good. Play well. Be nice. Win the league. You don't have to win. Do you win? Yes. Alright, so it depends on how we do it.